Okay, let's start class. We're continuing the United States-Iran war. As I've said in the previous class, the United States will invade Iran. We don't know when. It might be 2 years from now. It might be 6 years from now. Okay, but eventually it will happen. And in today's class, I want to go over some of the reasons why the United States will invade Iran. And I believe that there'll be three major reasons, okay? The first major reason is the United States must defend its empire. Second major reason is that the United States will be pressured by its allies, mainly Saudi Arabia and Israel, into invading Iran. And the third reason is the Israel lobby, okay? So in today's class, I want to explain to you what the Israel lobby is. But first, I need you to understand what Christianity is, okay? So remember that Christianity, it's a religion about a man, Jesus, who we know very little about, okay? We think that he was born in 4 BCE, and then he died in 31 BC, CE, Common Era. We know that he is from a place called Galilee. We know that the Romans crucified him. And that's about it, okay? What his believers say is that he is God come to earth, and he was preaching a gospel or a message that God is returning. The kingdom of heaven is coming. And after he was crucified, he was resurrected, and then he went to heaven. And what's really important is that Jesus will eventually return, okay? And this is called the second coming, okay? This is the second coming of Jesus, and when he comes, he will bring heaven onto earth, and we will all live forever in peace. Okay, so that's the story of Jesus. Then the question then is, why this religion become so popular in fact that today about 2 billion people believe in it. Okay, it's the most popular, most powerful religion in the world. And at first, the appeal of Christianity is that it was a revolutionary religion that promised a better world to the world's oppressed. Okay, so if you look at the early people who followed Christianity, it was slaves, peasants, women, okay, people who were marginalized in society. And the idea of Jesus is that a better world is coming where everyone will be equal. Okay, the meek shall inherit the earth. So if you think about it, Christianity is appealing because what it is, it's a free lottery ticket. Okay, does that make sense? It's a lottery ticket. It costs you nothing, and hey, if it's right, then you go to heaven. Okay, so at first, Christianity was an extremely revolutionary religion, and its basic characteristics in the beginning were it was revolutionary, it was egalitarian, and it was anti-authority. And so these individuals who before were outcast from society, okay, like criminals, Jesus promised hope, salvation, and redemption, okay? So before, if you were a criminal, there was really no way for you to redeem yourself in society. And Jesus is the promise of your salvation and redemption, okay? And that's why it was so appealing to a lot of people. It became so popular that it became the official religion of the Roman Empire. Now, there's a problem, okay? Because remember, Christianity is a revolutionary, egalitarian, and anti-authority religion. And now, it's become an empire. So, they had to develop new theories to reinvent Christianity as an establishment religion. Okay? And as we discussed last semester, the person who did this was Augustine. Okay, Augustine. And remember that last semester we read City of God and Confessions. And City of God and Confessions, it's really to adapt Christianity as an establishment religion, to reduce its revolutionary nature. Okay? So is this all making sense to you? And one problem that Augustine had was the idea of a second coming, okay? That the world will end. He had a major problem with this idea for many reasons, okay? But the first reason is that, if the world's going to end, why do we have to do anything? Why can't we just drink and party and play video games every day, right? What's the point of working? That's the first problem, right? The second problem is, well, why is Jesus coming back? It's because the world sucks, right? Well, who's in charge of the world? The Catholic Church is in charge of the world. Do you understand? So Jesus is coming back to destroy the authority of the Catholic Church. That's not good. All right? So for many reasons, Augustine basically said, okay, second coming, don't worry about it. Okay? Jesus will come back whenever he wants to come back. But before he comes back, we, the Catholic Church, will take care of everyone, okay? All right, so why is this important? This is important because from Augustine onwards, we've had divergent understanding of what the second coming means, okay? For people who believe in the second coming, the term we use is premillennialism. Premillennials, okay? Because the second coming promised 1,000 years of peace. Okay, premillennialism is this, okay? Pre means before, right? So when Jesus comes back, he will give us 1,000 years of peace and prosperity. Okay, do you understand? Before he comes back, okay? When he comes back, he will give us 1,000 years of peace and prosperity. And what Augustine said is, no. That 1,000 years is just a metaphor. It's not actually going to happen. In fact, it's already happened because the Catholic Church is giving us this 1,000 years of peace and prosperity. Okay? So he's called a millennialist, which means no, okay? That 1,000 years is just a metaphor. It's not going to really happen, okay? So that's a second big idea. Now, as we know, because all power became concentrated in the Catholic Church, there's a rebellion against the Catholic Church called the Reformation. Okay? The Reformation. And the idea of the Reformation is God did not mean for his authority to be established in the church, to be held by priests. God is meant to speak to all of us through the Bible. Okay, so what the major difference between the Catholic religion and the Protestant religion is Catholics are not allowed to read the Bible. They don't read the Bible. Whereas Protestants must read the Bible. They must seek meaning and guidance from their interpretation of the Bible. Okay? And because of the Reformation, you now have thousands, tens of thousands of different religions spawning up, okay? Does that make sense? All right? So you have different religions and you have different descent. So let's look at England, okay? England. So England, there's a king, and before the Catholic Church was supposed to have authority over the king. And of course, the king did not like that, so he supported the Reformation, and he changed the Catholic Church into something called the Anglican Church, okay? Or the Church of England, which he would have authority over. But once the Reformation started, again, you are now allowed to read the Bible. And because of that, you have thousands of new religions coming up in England, okay? And they believe different things, but one thing that they all believed in is the Bible is the supreme authority. Okay? The Bible is the supreme authority, not the king. Right? So this started a major conflict between these groups and the king. And these people are called dissenters. And eventually this led to something called the English Civil War, where the dissenters, the Puritans, killed the king. Okay? But then the king was reestablished. And so this led to decades and decades of fighting in England. So one way that the king tried to resolve this conflict is by sending all these dissenters to America. Okay? To America. And the idea is this. These dissenters believe that the Bible is a supreme authority. The Bible asks us to do certain things, okay? Because it's written in the Bible. For example, you're not allowed to drink. You're not allowed to dance. You're not allowed to have any fun. You must focus on your own spiritual improvement. Okay? You're not allowed to have slaves. And so, because they believe these things, they were constantly in conflict with the establishment, okay? With people in power. And so the king was like, guys, if you really believe in these things, go to America. Why? Because there's nobody in America. So you can build your own kingdom of heaven. Do you understand? Okay? So this is the origin of the United States. The United States was founded as a Christian nation, which put the Bible as the supreme authority. Okay? Does that make sense? You guys probably don't know this about the United States. You think the United States, it's a non-religious, secular, multicultural nation that believes in science, right? That's what it looks like from the outside. But inside its soul, its history, it is a Christian nation dedicated to achieving the kingdom of God on earth. Okay? And using the Bible as the supreme authority and guide to achieve this kingdom on earth. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. So, these people in America and these dissenters, okay? One question that they always ask themselves is, why isn't Jesus back yet, okay? The second coming. Why isn't the second coming back yet? And different people have different explanations, okay? And so from this group come two more groups, okay? You have some people who are called the post-millennials. Okay? And post-millennials believe that Jesus will come back after we establish 1,000 years of the Christian church in the world. Okay? Does that make sense? So we have to prove that we are worthy of God. God's not going to come back and establish this for us. We have to do it ourselves. Okay? So these are people called post, which is say that Jesus will come after the 1,000 years. But then you have another group called dispensationalists. I don't even know how to spell this word, actually. Okay, anyway, dispensation is historic, okay? All right, so now the premillennialists are split into two other groups. So the historic premillennialists are people who believe what the early Christians believed, which is that Jesus is going to come back. Don't worry when he's coming back. Just be a good person, and he'll come back eventually, okay? It's not up to us to ask when he's coming back. He's God, okay? He has a plan. He knows what he's doing. Just be patient, guys, okay? That's the historic premillennials. And then you have another group called the dispensationalists premillennialists, okay? And what they believe is something different. They believe that, in the Bible, if you read the Bible very, very closely, it tells you how and why Jesus will return. Okay? What the Bible says is that there must be a nation called Israel, okay? And Israel is a nation of Jews. And then Israel has something called the temple, because that's where God resides, okay? It must have the temple. And then what will happen, according to the Bible, is that the Antichrist, okay, or Satan, lives. Okay? Then there will be an Antichrist, okay, Satan, who will be the great deceiver. He'll pretend to be God. He'll pretend to be Messiah, but he's really Satan, okay? And then he will launch a war when all the nations of the world will try to attack Israel. And at this point, Jesus will come back, and he will destroy the Antichrist. He will save Israel, and he will usher in 1,000 years of peace. Before, and then 1,000 years later, you'll have the last judgment, where God will judge us to be either worthy or not worthy. If we are worthy, we'll live on forever. If we're not worthy, then we'll burn in hell forever, okay? Okay. So there are different variations of this prophecy, well, that's what they believe, okay? So in other words, the historic premillennialists, what they believe about the coming of Jesus is it's a promise, okay? Jesus promises to return. He's God. He will keep his promise. He's probably very busy right now with other things, so don't worry about it, guys, okay? Let's just be patient and trust in Jesus, okay? That's what they believe. But the dispensationalists, premillennialists, believe that the prophecy, it's a plan, okay? It's something that we must achieve to bring Jesus back. And if we do what the Bible tells us to do, which is to say, to have Israel as a nation run by the Jews, to have the temple, and then to face the Antichrist, then Jesus will return. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Now, so these are the four different views of the end times. Okay? You have the historic premillennialists who believe that Jesus has promised to return. Let's just wait, guys. Don't worry about it. You have the dispensationalists, premillennialists, who believe that we have to work hard to bring Jesus back, okay? And then you have the amillennialists who are like, no, the 1,000 years, it's just a metaphor. It's not going to happen. Don't worry about it, guys, okay? And then you have the post-millennialists who believe that it's up to us to establish a good world. Jesus is not going to do it for us. If we do this, then Jesus will return. Okay? And so, but remember, guys, okay, this is a very simple version of the four different beliefs. Even within each belief, there are variations, okay? Because again, there are 2 billion people who believe in Christianity, and they all believe something different, okay? Does that make sense? All right, are we clear about the four different ideas? Any questions? Okay, so, okay, so you don't actually have to remember this, okay? But all I'm trying to show you is that even within Christianity, there's a debate, okay? But there's a concern, an obsession as to when Jesus will return and how he will return. Okay, does that make sense? All right. So, this is important. Now, most Christians don't believe in dispensationalist premillennialism, okay? In fact, most Christians believe that dispensationalist premillennialism is actually pretty evil. Why? Why would it be evil? We cannot believe in dispensationalist premillennialism because it's evil. Why? As a Christian, why would you think this is evil? What's a problem with believing that there's a plan in the Bible? Why would that be anti-Christian? Okay, so this is hard, okay? But the idea is that with this plan, you're trying to manipulate God. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, you're trying to force God to return, and you shouldn't do that. If you believe in God, then you will trust God, and you will try your best to be a good person, which is what the Bible asks you to do. And when God returns, it's none of your business, okay? It's not our concern. So the dispensationalist premillennialists are an extremely controversial minority within Christianity, okay? Most Christians don't actually believe this. And they find that a lot of these beliefs to be evil. And maybe even blasphemous, okay? You're insulting God with this sort of thinking. Okay. The problem is that of all these groups, the dispensationalist premillennialists, are the most organized, and they're the most fanatical. They really believe that this is true.